You did not stop here by accident. Something inside you felt a quiet pull, a whisper so soft you almost dismissed it. But you did not dismiss it. You stayed. And that is not a small thing. Because right now, at this exact moment in your life, you were meant to hear what is about to be said. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, but right now. Because something is shifting around you, even if you cannot yet see it with your eyes or name it with your words. There are people in this world who give and give and give. People who love with a depth that frightens others. People who stayed longer than they should have, explained more than they ever needed to, and chased something that kept moving just out of reach. This message was arranged for you. What you are about to hear will change the way you see everything that happened to you. You know what it felt like. You know what it felt like to be the one who always reached first. The one who sent the first message and then watched the clock. The one who rehearsed conversations in their head before having them. Try and find the right words, the right tone, the right amount of need to show without showing too much. You were careful. You were so careful. And still it was never quite enough. Maybe you were the one who apologized first, even when the fault was not yours. Maybe you were the one who shrunk yourself in rooms where you should have taken up space. Maybe you kept explaining your feelings, patiently, calmly, again and again, to someone who nodded and then did the same thing the next week. And still you stayed, because you believed in them, because you saw something in them that they had not yet seen in themselves. You carried love the way some people carry debt. Quietly, constantly, always aware of the weight, but never willing to put down in front of others. There were nights you held back tears not because nothing hurt, but because you had taught yourself that falling apart was not something you were allowed to do. There were mornings you woke up and chose them again, even when choosing them meant leaving less of yourself for you. You were not weak. Let that be said clearly. You were not foolish, and you were not blind. You were someone whose capacity for love was simply larger than the space you were being given to pour it into. That love was real. Every single piece of it was real, and it did not go unnoticed by the universe. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to this channel. Before we go any further, if these words are reaching something inside you, if you feel seen right now, please subscribe, hit the bell icon, and select all notifications. Every single video on this channel has the power to shift how you think, how you feel, and how you love. Carl Jung, one of the most profound minds in the history of human psychology, believed that we do not attract who we want. We attract who we are, or more precisely, who we have not yet healed. Jung called it the shadow self. The hidden part of every person that carries their unprocessed wounds, their unacknowledged fears, and the beliefs they formed about love before they were old enough to question them. Most people walk through their entire lives completely unaware that this shadow exists. They only know that love feels difficult, that closeness feels dangerous, that the moment someone gets too near, something in them pulls away. The person you were chasing had a shadow they had not yet faced. And here's the part that will sting before it heals. So, did you? Because chasers, people who overgive, overexplain, and overstay, are not simply loving too much. They are operating from a wound that whispers you must earn love. That love has to be worked for, fought for, proven worthy of. That if you just try hard enough, explain clearly enough, stay patient enough, they will finally choose you. Jung called this a projection. You were not just loving another person. You were unconsciously trying to heal something inside yourself by fixing the connection outside yourself. This is not a judgment. This is the most human thing in the world. But Jung also said something else. Something that changes everything once you truly understand it. He said that the moment a person stops outsourcing their wholeness to another, the moment they turn inward and begin the work of individuation, the entire pattern of who they attract begins to change. That moment came for you. It did not happen with a dramatic speech. There was no confrontation, no final ultimatum, no movie moment where music swelled and you walked away in slow motion. It happened quietly. Maybe it was an ordinary Tuesday. Maybe you picked up your phone to send a message and then put it back down without sending it. Maybe you started an explanation and then stopped mid-sentence because you realized you had already said all of this before. Maybe you simply woke up one morning and felt something different. Not anger, not sadness, but something still, something settled. like a decision that had been forming in the deep water of your soul for a long time had finally risen to the surface without asking your permission. You stopped chasing, not because you stopped caring. You need to understand that clearly. You stopped because somewhere beneath all the exhaustion, beneath all the hoping and the waiting and the adjusting, you heard a quiet voice that said, "This is not how love is supposed to feel." Maybe you stopped being the one who always reached first. Maybe you stopped reshaping your words to make your feelings easier for someone else to receive. Maybe you stopped showing up in spaces where you had to remind someone of your value. And the moment you did, something in the energy around you shifted. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious communicates not just within us, but between us. That when one person changes at the level of the soul, the people connected to them feel it. Not always consciously, not always immediately, but they feel it. The person who had grown comfortable with your chasing suddenly felt the ground shift beneath them. And that is where our story truly begins. There is something that happens inside a person when the one who always reached for them suddenly goes quiet. At first, they tell themselves it is nothing. They pick up their phone. They go about their day. They fill the hours the way they always have. But something feels different, and they cannot name it. There is a space where something used to be. Not loud, not dramatic, just absent. And absence, when you have grown used to presence, has a weight of its own. They scroll through their phone and pause on your name. Not to message you, just to pause. Just to feel the strange new silence sitting where your words used to be. They remember something you said weeks ago. Something small, something you probably forgot the moment it left your mouth. And it lands differently now. It lands like something they should have paid more attention to. They are at dinner with friends, and someone says something that reminds them of you, and they go quiet for just a moment, long enough for someone across the table to ask if they are all right. They say yes. But something is turning over inside them slowly, because the human mind does not truly understand the value of what it holds until it feels the possibility of losing it. You were always there, reliable, present, reaching, and people, especially people with unhealed shadows, as Jung would say, learn to take steady love for granted, not out of cruelty, out of unconsciousness. They never asked themselves what they would feel if that steadiness simply stopped. Now they know. They are sitting with the question they avoided for so long. And the question is this: did I let something rare walk quietly out of my life while I was too comfortable to notice? The answer rising inside them is the one they were not prepared for. Yes, if this is speaking to something real inside you right now, if these words feel less like content and more like confirmation, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for all notifications. This journey we are on together is only getting deeper from here. Jung spent decades studying what it means for a human being to become truly whole. He called this process individuation, the long, often painful journey of integrating every part of yourself, the parts you are proud of and the parts you buried, the strength and the wound, the love you gave freely and the love you were never given in return. He believed that most people never complete this journey, not because they're incapable, but because the world outside is loud and the work inside is quiet. It is far easier to chase another person than to sit with yourself. It is far easier to pour your love outward than to turn it inward and ask, why do I feel I must earn the right to be loved? But something happened when you stopped chasing. You began, perhaps without even realizing it, the work of individuation. You stopped giving your energy to someone who had not asked the hard questions of themselves. And in that stopping, you began asking those questions of yourself. Why did I stay so long? What was I hoping to prove? What belief inside me decided that love had to be this difficult? Jung said that a person who has done this work carries a different energy. Not louder, not more aggressive, but grounded in a way that others can feel before a single word is spoken. There is a stillness in someone who has stopped running from themselves, a quiet wholeness that has nothing to prove and nothing to beg for. And that energy, that specific, rare, grounded energy, is magnetic in ways that anxious chasing never is. The person who once took your reaching for granted suddenly finds themselves reaching toward you, not out of strategy, not out of game playing, but because something in their own unconscious recognizes what their conscious mind is only beginning to admit. They are standing in front of someone who has done the work they have been avoiding, and it is the most quietly powerful thing they have ever encountered. Pay attention, because this is the part you need to hear carefully. There are signs already moving around you. Quiet signs, the kind that are easy to dismiss if you are not paying attention, but impossible to ignore once you know what you're looking at. They are thinking about you more than they are letting on. Not occasionally, consistently. In the early morning before the day gets loud, your face appears in their mind without invitation. At night before sleep takes them, they are replaying moments between you, not the arguments, not the distance, but the good ones, the ones that showed them who you really are. They are holding conversations with your memory, saying things to the version of you that lives in their mind that they never said to your face. Apologies, confessions, questions they should have asked long ago. They have looked at your name on their phone more than once this week, with something sitting in their chest they do not quite have the language for. It is not guilt alone. It is not simple missing. It is recognition, the slow and uncomfortable recognition that what they had with you was not ordinary, that the patience you gave them, the depth you offered them, the love you extended so consistently, none of that is something that simply reappears with someone new. They are noticing what your absence changed in them. Small things. The absence of someone who actually listened. The absence of someone who remembered the little details. The absence of someone whose love felt like shelter rather than transaction. Jung believed that the unconscious always knows the truth before the conscious mind is willing to speak it. And the truth working its way through their unconscious right now is this. They let someone irreplaceable go quiet. And the quiet is teaching them everything the noise never could. They are waking up, slowly, imperfectly, the way all real awakenings happen. But they are waking up. And somewhere in a place beyond logic, you already feel it. There is something that needs to be said directly before we go any further. Something that perhaps no one has said to you clearly enough or often enough. You were never the problem. Not the way you loved. Not the depth of it. Not the consistency of it. Not the way you stayed and tried and believed when most people would have already left. None of that was a problem. The problem was never the size of your love. The problem was the container it was being poured into. You were not too much. You were given to someone who had not yet done their work. Someone whose unhealed shadow kept them at a distance from the very thing they needed most. And because you were patient, because you were steady, because your love did not waver, their avoidance had nothing to push against, nothing to fear, nothing to wake it up. Until you stopped. Jung said that we cannot force another person's individuation. We cannot love someone into wholeness. We cannot chase someone into choosing us. Every soul must arrive at its own reckoning in its own time. Your job was never to drag them there. Your job was to do your own work, to heal your own wound, to stop outsourcing your sense of worth to someone else's inconsistency. You did that. Maybe you did not call it inner work. Maybe you just called it exhaustion. Maybe you called it finally hitting a wall. But whatever name you gave it, the effect was the same. You chose yourself, quietly, without announcement, without an audience. And in doing so, you became something you were not quite yet when the chasing started. You became someone impossible to forget. Something is moving toward you, not the anxious, conditional, confusing kind of love that made you question your worth at every turn. Not the kind that kept you waiting by your phone. Not the kind that made you feel like a burden for simply needing what every human being deserves to need. That chapter is closing, and what is approaching now is something your nervous system has not yet learned to recognize, because you have not felt it before in its full form. What is coming toward you is love that is certain, love that does not make you shrink, love that does not require an explanation for why you feel what you feel, love that arrives and stays. Not because you chase it into staying, not because you made yourself small enough to be unthreatening, but because it recognizes in you something it has been searching for without knowing the name of it. The person moving back toward you, or the person being drawn into your life for the first time, is someone whose unconscious has done the reckoning. Someone who has felt the weight of your absence and let it teach them. Someone who is no longer operating purely from their shadow, but who has begun, however imperfectly, to wake up. They will not arrive with a grand performance. Real love rarely does. They will arrive quietly. in a message that feels different from the ones before, in a conversation where they are more present than you have ever known them to be, in a moment where they look at you and something in their eyes has shifted, like a person who has been lost and has finally, after a long and humbling journey, found their way back to where they were always supposed to be. Prepare your heart, not with walls, not with tests or strategies or careful emotional rationing. Prepare it with openness, with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their own worth now. Because what is coming is not a maybe, it is a when. This is the part that requires your full attention. Because knowing that love is approaching is only half of the work. The other half is making sure you do not undo what your stillness built. And there's one thing above all else that you must protect right now with everything you have. Protect the quiet. Do not go back to chasing. Not even a little. Not a casual message that you tell yourself means nothing. Not a soft reach disguised as indifference. The version of you that stopped, that quiet, grounded, finally at peace version, is the version that changed everything. The moment you return to the old pattern, even partially, you send a signal to your own unconscious and to theirs that nothing has really shifted, that the old dynamic is still available, that they can drift again and you will reach again. Do not offer that. Instead, continue the inner work. Continue asking yourself the questions Jung spent his life pointing people toward. What do I actually believe I deserve? Where did I learn that love had to be earned? What would it feel like to receive love without bracing for it to be taken away? Let those questions live in you. Do not rush them toward answers. And when something or someone new enters your space, do not measure against the pain of what came before. Do not let old wounds make decisions for new moments. You are allowed to receive goodness without suspicion. You are allowed to feel safe without waiting for the moment it is taken from you. Choose peace over the familiar ache of longing. Choose stillness over the exhausting motion of chasing. You already know how to chase. You spent years perfecting it. Now learn the far rarer and far more powerful art of simply being worth returning to, because you already are. Carl Jung once wrote that the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, not the self that performs for others, not the self that shrinks to be loved, not the self that chases and over-explains and carries love like an apology, but the full self, the deep self, the self that does not need to earn its place in any room or any relationship or any heart. You have been moving toward that self. Every moment you chose not to reach. Every morning you sat with your own silence instead of filling it with someone else's inconsistency. Every time you let something go that was not choosing you back. You were doing the most profound work a human being can do. Jung believed that when a person truly individuates, when they become genuinely whole within themselves, the love they attract is no longer a reflection of their wound. It becomes a reflection of their wholeness. You are not the same person who started chasing. You are someone who stopped, someone who turned inward, someone who chose themselves before anyone else had the chance to. And that is the person they realized, too late, and then just in time, was the one all along. If these words found something true inside you today, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications. Every video here is created to help you think deeper, heal further, and love better. Your presence in this community means everything. We will see you in the next one.